I would like to ask all of you a question. How many of you try to influence the outcomes and actions of others? How many of you try to influence your kids in picking up their room, doing their homework, or stop picking on their brother and sister? On the reverse, how many of you have been influenced into buying or doing something? Either someone is influencing you or you are influencing someone daily. Understanding how to influence someone is not that simple. It can be very complex. You must understand another person's point of view. You must understand another person's perspective. Once you do that, you can identify their incentives. What makes them want to do something? My kid's incentive is tablet time. It's the new currency for kids these days. I say to him, if you pick up your room, I'll give you more time on your tablet. Poof, the room is clean. I'm going to be talking about this today, on how to understand the point of view of the people we are influencing, and my role in trying to make sense of it, because it can be very complex. And my experience has been that we try to make things complex, simple, but instead, we should get a deeper understanding and try to learn other perspectives. But first, let me talk a little bit about my background. I started my career as a U.S. Army psychological operations officer. My job was to influence the hearts and minds of foreign target audiences connected to an overall defense strategy. I continued my role as an influencer for the Air Force, as a deterrence analyst for United States Strategic Command. Influence is also known as deterrence. Deterrence is defined as to prevent an action through the threat of punishment or perceived benefit. Or in simpler form, you want to influence someone into doing or not doing something. Deterrence is connected to the military, and it has been in the news quite a bit lately, specifically connected to the war in Ukraine. Russia, Ukraine, European Union, NATO, US, all want to deter certain actions from happening in this conflict. All want to influence the other into doing or not doing something that will benefit them. But the complexities here is that we live in an interconnected and globalized environment where relationships aren't as simple as they once were. If there is a disagreement, we can't simply just grab our toys and go home. Instead, there are economic and security dependencies that are factored into our decision-making, which makes this war so complex. Certain European countries have economic dependencies with Russia. The US has certain security alliances with countries in the region. To understand this conflict, we have to dissect all these relationships and see how they're connected. In my past role working for the military, I've gathered a few observations that I would like to share with you today that I feel hinder our understanding of these complexities. First, I notice we tend to have knee-jerk solutions in times of crisis. When a crisis happens, we're focused on a solution and immediately. Many of us are so determined in finding an answer, we forget what the issue is in the first place, or what I call the complex problem. For example, I have students who want to solve homelessness through introducing new social programs. But when I ask them if those social programs will fix what's causing homelessness, there is no answer. When you have complex problems like homelessness and war, we want to fix them and solve them with preset plans and solutions. Bringing continuity to our process puts us in a safe zone. We do this for a reason, because it takes away risks and unknowns. In the military, this was essential because lives could be lost if we didn't have some preset plan or strategy that could be put into place immediately. Now, I'm not saying let's throw out all the military plans and emergency plans, absolutely not. But If we first can recognize our safe zone and acknowledge that the simple approach is not always the best answer and could prevent us from innovative solutions, we need to stop and ask what's really causing the problem. Second, we tend to avoid things that are difficult to understand, especially when it comes to how people make decisions. Did your kid pick up his room because you asked him to, or was he incentivized by his teacher with a party at the end of the week? In the military, we're good at assessing weapons effectiveness, but we're not very good at understanding why world leaders do what they do. We want to, but this is hard. We ask ourselves, did Putin do that because we wanted him to, or something else? In my current role as a professor of political science, we overcame these observations through testing and experimenting on deterrence and influence. This is not normally done in the defense community because of a lack of a controlled environment, but we can do this at the university, and we can do this at our lab. We can test and fail in a safe environment and pass on our findings. We can do what the defense world cannot. When we first started our project, we wanted to create an adaptable and flexible deterrence methodology that could address any threat by any type of actor with current and emerging technologies, without simplifying it that it took away the complexity. Simply put, we wanted to understand how to influence countries from behaving badly and deter future war. But we had to go beyond this simple approach. We had to look at all the interconnectedness of everyone involved, states, groups, communities, people, and see how they're all connected. In the past, we would only look at how to influence one country at a time. Say you're a family of 5, and you have 3 children. In the past, deterrence method would only look at how to influence one of those kids at a time, rather than all of them. But we know that kids have different personalities, different incentives, different decision-making processes. And those kids can scheme and build alliances behind your back so you don't know who to trust. This example is what we're trying to understand, but instead of the living room, we're looking at the world. I'd like to give you a few examples of our work. First, about 2 months ago, I was in Norway, located in the Arctic Circle. There, I was with a group of people concerned about Arctic security and defense. Our conversations focused on this new environment becoming a security threat landscape due to climate change. Meaning, before the Arctic was too cold to operate, but now with the ice melting, new countries and organizations are exploring in this area. My team and I conducted an experiment over a year ago on the Arctic. We wanted to answer what new security threats could arise in the Arctic 20 years down the road if weapons and military bases were established here. This was our complex problem. With the experiment of the Arctic, we were able to identify a few things. Which countries would operate in this area, even though they may not be physically located? Which ones could join alliances? And which ones could be pushed towards hostility? We identified the complex problem, tested into a controlled environment, and passed on our findings to defense organizations. But we didn't stop at the Arctic. My second example is from 9 months ago. We wanted to look at possible threats to Iowa and Nebraska agricultural economy. We wanted to understand if there could be bad actors trying to negatively influence our food supply chain. My team and I took the methodology we built during the Arctic experiment, which we are calling MADAM, to dissect and identify all the relationships of the groups that could be possibly be involved. Through this experiment, we were able to identify which actors, specifically cyber criminals, drug cartel, Russia, and others, that had negative intentions for our livestock and crops. And then our findings produced which of those actors would join together and identify influence objectives so we could build deterrence to deter these actions. And we passed on our findings to defense organizations. What I'm describing to you today can go beyond defense organizations. We all have complex problems. We all face being influenced or influencing others. And we all have our own level of crisis. So, as you leave here today, I challenge you, when a crisis arrives, may it be with your own organization, your own community, even your own family, try not to give a knee-jerk solution. Try to get to the heart of the issue. Understand the complex problem that's feeding the crisis. From there, try to identify everyone involved. You may want to take the simpler approach, but again, I challenge you. Take time to understand the crisis and learn from other perspectives. Acknowledging the difficulty of the situation is the first step on the path towards assessing your complex problem. Thank you.